Folks, we are here in Georgia. The offices of Georgia Stand Up. Of course, one of the groups who is encouraging folks to get out and vote. They've been canvassing all across this state, trying to, again, increase the turnout in the January 5th November runoff. We'll talk in a minute with the leader of this organization about their efforts and what they're doing, what they're seeing and hearing on the ground. But a huge story that has developed, and that is it deals with a federal judge found that inaccuracies in Georgia's voter purge and has ordered a meeting between civil rights leaders and organizers, first of all, civil rights organizers and the Secretary of State's office to deal with exactly what happened. And again, remember, we covered this story. The folks with Black Voters Matter, ACLU, they sued the state saying that some 300 people, 1,000 people were wrongly purged. Well, according to ACLU, 198,000 people were erroneously purged out of that 300,000. Now, this federal judge is saying there were indeed inaccuracies and want these two groups to meet. Republicans have been doing all they can to sow seeds of discontent when it comes to voting, alleging voter fraud, but they can't provide any evidence of that. In fact, Senator David Purdue, what he is trying to do, he literally wants them to segregate. Listen to me. He wants them to segregate the votes of people who registered after the November 3rd election. He's saying that if you did not vote in the November 3rd election, you should not be able to register and vote in the runoff. But the law allows for you to do so. And so lots of drama here in Georgia when it comes to that. Why is all of this important? It is because new polling out shows Pastor Raphael Warnock with a 7-point lead against Senator Kelly Loeffler. And in the other race, Democrat John Ossoff with a 2-point lead against Senator David Perdue. Republicans are scared to death. They are going to lose these two races. And what does that mean? That means it will be a 50-50 tie. Democrats in the United States Senate and Vice President Kamala Harris will be the one to break a tie if it comes down to that. Let's talk about this here with our panel. Robert Portillo, Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition Peachtree Street Project. And they're one of the plaintiffs in this case. And then, of course, we'll talk in a minute with our panel. Robert, I want to start with you. So lay out to our viewers and listeners exactly what is going on with this lawsuit. What did the federal judge discover when y'all presented the evidence and the information to the federal court?
Well, I think it's important to first give credit to C.K. Loeffler, President of the National Bar Association, Gerald Griggs, justice fighter who are spearheading this litigation as the legal representation. And it's still active litigation, but the order that came down from the judge today, if you go to the last page to the conclusion, he states that there are irregularities in the Georgia voter purge. ACLU discovered 198,000 voters were questionably purged from the rolls, and the judge has found that there are inaccuracies in the way that was determined because the state used a third party. I don't want Scott.
I'm only talking. No.
Yeah. And the state used a third party vendor to determine the individuals who would be purged, and further the judge encouraged that these sides meet. Now the Black Voters Matter, headed up by LaTosha Brown, many other organizations have continuously been asking for meetings with the Secretary of State. Now the federal judge is putting his finger on the scale, demanding that such happens. Now the judge did deny the injunctive relief which we had requested. That was going to be a hard pull from the beginning. However, simply by the judge stating that there is evidence of irregularities in the way that this purge took place, it does encourage us that we will be able to get some action on this. And frankly, we've already this judge has articulated more evidence than any of the president's lawsuits with regards to voter fraud already. So this is active litigation that we believe could help re-enfranchise hundreds of thousands of Georgians.
So Robert, you talked about this third party. We previously had Greg Pallas on the show. What he said is that the vendor they use, they were not approved by the U.S. Postal Service, correct?
Correct. And so that's an important point to make.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Explain that.
Well, Yeah, well, the importance is that the reason you're supposed to use a vendor that is approved by the United States Postal Service is that this is a governmental entity. You can't simply say that I'm going to get a list off of Amazon. I'm going to get a list from Google, and that's what I'm going to use to purge people. You have to prove that these people have moved outside of the state, that they have died or something along those lines to justify the purge. So the Secretary of State's office cut corners in doing so. That's why our argument is that we should be restoring these people to the voter rolls. And as I said, it's being spearheaded by C.K. Loeffler and Gerald Griggs, and it's active litigation. We do believe that it's very encouraging that the judge found that there are irregularities, meaning that they could be that people were incorrectly purged from the rolls. And if the Secretary of State's office does not agree, after a federal judge has said they need to meet with civil rights groups and voting rights groups, then that's clear evidence that they are purposefully suppressing the vote, not simply accidentally or doing some administrative process. And if you look at the number of states that have done voter purges around the country, we believe this could be a model for how they can fight back against voter suppression.
I want to bring in now Scott Bolden, of course, formerly chaired National Bar Association's Political Action Committee. Scott, this is why lawyers matter. And when Robert talked about providing relief to disenfranchised voters, the initial purge was 300,000. When the ACLU went back, they said 198,000 were wrongly purged. If you look at this election, let's just say again, and most of the people are people of color, black folks are people of color. If you actually did a 70-30 split of that 198,000, the reality is this here. That could have been the difference between Ossoff winning the Senate seat outright, and there were too many people who were in the Warnock race. There were two Republicans who were running as well. But that's what people don't understand. Joe Biden only wins Georgia by less than 12,000 votes. You talk about impacting that number of people. That's how you can win or lose. Stacey Abrams lost the gubernatorial race in Georgia because of the shenanigans of Brian Kemp. This is how Republicans are able to sort of just, in essence, steal elections by picking off 5 or 10,000 here, 5 or 10,000 here, and that's really what their goal is.
You're absolutely right about that, but this is why the Democrats and these civil rights organizations must do what they're doing now, because the numbers are so close. If they were off by 100,000 or 500,000 losing these elections, that'd be one thing. But because the demographics have changed, that every lawsuit and every vote matters as we turn the purple Georgia or red Georgia into the blue Georgia. I got to tell you, during the next 4 years, the champions, when we look back on the COVID years and the Trumpism or Trump years, the champions in the line that held for democracy was the judiciary, the third branch of government. In this particular case, the lawyers had the evidence, they presented to the court, and I guess my question for Robert is, it sounds like, I'm not involved in it, but it sounds like the court has indicated, or what you can extrapolate is, you all go work it out. You better figure out a number and resolve this, or I'm going to resolve it. And if I resolve it, you're not going to like the result, whether it's to either party, if you will. Was that the case, as you know it?
Understand, remember that this is from a nonpartisan perspective. The entire concept is restoring as many people to vote. We're not going through saying only restore the Democrats, only restore the Republicans, but we want to have a free and fair election. What the judge did indicate, however, is that exactly.
You still have parties to the litigation.
Correct. The judge has indicated that he does want the parties to meet and to work out a resolution. He denied the injunctive relief, but he did not. But on the merits, he did not. What we saw the Rudy Giuliani litigation before the Supreme Court, where we got a one-paragraph back decision throwing the case out. This was a 39-page decision for a case that we argued last week. So it's a very well-researched, very well-written decision from the judge. And on the denying the injunctive relief, he cited technical issues, things such as latches, making sure that we have all the parties involved. But on the question of the irregularities, which people have to key in on, when a federal judge says that there are irregularities in the process for determining the individuals who were purged from the ballot, and he wants the parties to meet, that means the parties need to meet, or he will make a decision when it goes to full court. So it might not be injunctive relief, which we're seeking to get done before the runoff election, but going forward into 2022, going into 2024, there's going to be very interesting to see how Georgia adapts to having a fully enfranchised electorate.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this real quick, if I may, Roland. So what happens after both sides meet? Do you prepare an order of settlement? Does the case get dismissed? Or is there going to be more proceedings before this judge if there's no result of these meetings that he's ordered between the civil rights groups and the government?
We're early on in the litigation, so those are questions for C.K. Loeffler and for Gerald Griggs. But I think it's very encouraging that we do have a federal judge recognizing that there are irregularities in the process for purging voters. And I think that's the major takeaway. And we will look forward to having the meeting with the election officials and ensuring that we have a free and fair election. And if they deny such a meeting, if they do not follow what the federal judge says, I think that will be taken into consideration as to whatever the final outcome of the litigation is.
Yeah, Roland, I think there's going to be pressure on both sides to reach a number, reach some type of resolution, just based on what I'm extrapolating. I haven't seen the papers yet, but there'll be pressure on both sides, and that's a good thing. If I'm the government that did the purging, or I'm the third party vendor who did the purging, I'd be more concerned than the civil rights organizations, which means there's pressure on them to resolve this issue.
Well, look, this is at the end of the day, this is a very, very significant decision here because, again, it comes down to as many numbers as possible. People are expecting this to be a very, very tight election, and so that's the thing that we're looking at out here, and that's why so many people are focused on this. So many people are focused on this. And then that's that's exactly what we're looking at here. And so, folks, we're going to be continuing to cover this again. What is happening here? Let me just sort of set this thing off, folks. Already, we're in the third day of early voting. 700,000 Georgians have already voted. Now, remember, folks are voting in person. You also have absentee ballot drop-off boxes that are also around the state. And the thing, Robert, it's been quite hilarious, is to listen to folks like Newt Gingrich, who is saying the Republican Secretary of State, he's killing Republicans. He wants us to lose by having all of these different drop boxes. And I asked Warnock and Ossoff this yesterday and Monday, and this is real simple. The Secretary of State of Georgia works for Georgians, not the Republican Party. And look, if you want to win elections, make the case, the merits of your argument. But don't sit here and get mad because the Secretary of State wants to make it easier for people to vote.
It's interesting, but there are very divergent interests at stake. You have the one political party where their interest is in restricting the franchise, having as few people vote as possible. You had the Speaker of the House, Ralston, here in Georgia. You had Ted Cruz, Senator. You had President Trump all say that if you allow everybody to vote, Republicans will never win another election, and that is how they govern. This is why you never see a Republican get out the vote campaign. You very rarely see them out there saying that they're going to register new voters. It's always about depressing and suppressing and finding a way to have as few people vote as possible. What we're seeing now is that eventually demographics can outrun the suppression. That's what you're seeing in Georgia. A state that's 35% African American, 12% Latino, 6% Asian, 52% women. Eventually you outrun the efforts at suppression. And so when you keep that going, when you work on bringing in more people, attracting more people, all you have to do is look at the contrast between the Loeffler and Warnock campaign. Warnock talks about poverty, homelessness, drug addiction, bringing back a moral authority to the nation. Loeffler runs commercials on being Attila the Hun, continuously degrading and talking down to the black church, trying to radicalize, trying to separate, saying that this is the most radical socialist senator ever. That's not meant to bring people in or encourage them to vote. So what we're seeing now, and this is why you have to be very cognizant of what's happening. Barbara Arnwine and Daryl Jones from Transformative Justice are doing great work here in the state. Their statewide John Lewis Good Trouble marches, and making sure that people are paying attention to efforts in Cobb County to cut the number of drop boxes that are available. Suggestions in the state legislature to say that you can only drop off your ballot if there's a video camera doing a live stream of the box to ensure that it's not being tampered with. That was a real suggestion that came up this week. Trying to make it more difficult for individuals to vote in person, getting rid of Saturday voting. They're doing everything possible to restrict the number of people who can vote. And the reason is, as Lindsey Graham said, they're not making enough old white men to keep the Republican Party relevant. So instead of trying to win the battle of ideals, they try to restrict the votes and play the referees. And we saw this happen in apartheid South Africa. We saw this happen in Kosovo. We've seen it happen whenever you have a ruling majority that has lost the demographic battle and has now lost the ideological battle also.
But you know, Roland,
Scott, to the point that Robert is making. I mean, again, what you are seeing, what you are witnessing, is a party that does not want as many people to vote. And look, we've seen this in other states. They are going to do everything they can to basically skim the rolls. It's going to happen. Look, they're already talking about it in Georgia, changing the law. In fact, they even floated the idea of changing the law after the November 3rd election to impact the January 5th runoff. Secretary of State says that's stupid, because if y'all do that, it's going to be court challenges, it's going to be wasting time, and we're not going to be able to even put those rules, if you will, in place for the election. But again, Republicans, this is what they want to do. They are going to try everything to disenfranchise voters, and this is why it's called voter suppression.
Well, but look at the character of the GOP. You see, they're not even smart about it. These are acts of desperation, if you will, that the party would rather not change, right, and be all-inclusive. It would rather cheat, lie, steal, suppress, and repress in order to win the elections and to hold on. But as Robert said, they're going to outrun this suppression, if you will. And I got to tell you, the biggest difference in Georgia, and Robert, you tell me if I'm wrong, is the transformation of the suburbs. When I was at Morehouse College in the early 80s, once you left Atlanta, the suburbs were all white, all Republican. It had nothing to do. It looked like a different world when you left Atlanta. Now, 2021, those suburbs have a lot of women, a lot of educated women. They have a lot of black people, brown people, Asian people, and they're voting Democratic because this America, what GOP represents, and their messaging just doesn't resonate with them. And I got to tell you, as time goes on, Georgia may be purple. They may have flipped it once, if you will. But I anticipate if the demographics continue to change, then they're going to turn that state blue. And then that is going to be a clarion call or a dog whistle to the GOP that they got to make some changes. They got to make a decision. Are they going to live in Trumpism for the next 5 to 10 years? Or are they going to change and look more like America? Think about what their message is to suppress the vote.
Stop talking. Scott, I've been interrupting you for 20 seconds. Hold on. Let me go back to the point that you made. Look, this whole idea about how the suburbs in Georgia have changed, that's because black people have moved. Two, right. As Warnock said, Robert, yes. Okay, as Warnock said, Robert, in the last, they registered 800,000 people in the state. And so the reason the state has changed, is not because, they're rejecting Republican policies. It's because for the last decade, you had nonpartisan groups put the work in to register people to get them so they can vote. That's why the state has changed, It's not the policies. It's they put the work in because the parties were not going to do it. That's how Georgia has changed. That's how North Carolina changed, Robert.
Also, you have to remember, Republicans, if you look at the Republican platform from 2020, where they did not have a platform, and the Republican platform from, I don't know, Goldwater or Nixon, it's basically the same thing. Tax cuts, strong military, theoretically socially conservative. They've had the exact same platform since Reagan, since Nixon. They aren't coming up with new, innovative ideas that are going to attract young and diverse people. So in addition to what Scott was saying about the growth of the suburbs, we have to also look at the second great migration that we're going through right now. How many people in Atlanta are from New York, Chicago, Detroit, so on and so forth, who have moved to the South for lower taxes, better weather, part of the film industry, so on and so forth. So we've changed the complexion of the state. And by changing that complexion of the state, you change those municipalities that are around the municipal areas like Atlanta suburbs, Macon suburbs, Richmond County suburbs, Columbus suburbs, so on and so forth. And you create a new political coalition and demographics. I was up in Whitmer County, Georgia this weekend trying to help register voters and get out information on the Get Out the Vote campaigns. Whitmer County is about 30 minutes from Chattanooga, 90 minutes from Georgia, and it used to be basically a Confederate stronghold. If you went there in the 80s or 90s, you would not know you weren't in the 1880s or 1890s. And even there, you're seeing large Latino and African-American populations. If you go to Calhoun, Georgia, or Cartersville, you're seeing a very different Georgia than existed previously. And when Republicans are still campaigning as if they have Reagan and Bush on the ticket, that's not attractive to this new generation. So either they're going to have to modernize their ideas, or they're going to fall behind and continue to have to depend on voter suppression and other methods of rigging the game in order to have an opportunity to not just to win, but just to compete. Republicans only won the popular vote in presidential elections one time in the last 30 years. They won in 2004. Other than that, they have lost every single popular vote since Bush in 1988. So if they're not going to get better ideas, and they're not going to, as Lindsey Graham said, produce more old white men, they have to prepare to start losing more often. But it still does not mean you don't take your foot off the gas, proposing progressive policies, fighting to have free and fair elections, and ensuring that you can register as many people as possible, because the more people who vote, the more reflective our government is of the will of the American people.
Right. That's right. And those black and
So
brown
when I said that, one second, Scott, hold on, folks. When I said that there are groups that have been on the ground, folks who have been going door to door, canvassing, not just during the election, but literally 365, 24/7. That's how this state changed. We're here in the offices of Georgia Stand Up. Deborah Scott, she leads the organization. She joins us right now. Deborah, how you doing?
I'm good, Roland. How you doing?
Doing great. So yeah, for the folks who aren't aware, because again, when you watch a lot of these national media shows, people that they think that the suburbs in Atlanta are all white, and not understanding the work that was put in, the hard slog of folk put every day to register people. Talk about that and what was done.
Well, so first of all, thank you. You're right on. The suburbs have changed because black people's living patterns have changed. We have destroyed all of public housing in the city of Atlanta, so people have no choice but to move out into the suburbs because that's who would accept the vouchers. So the demographics have changed. The suburbs are more middle class in some areas, and black definitely. So we have a mix of older, younger, and affluent, and working class people in the suburbs. So the voting patterns have changed. In some of these counties, we have the first ever black elected officials over these last couple of elections. So yes, organizations like the People's Agenda, Georgia Stand Up, HBCU Green, Black Women's Roundtable, Black Voters Matter. We have been doing the work for years, registering people all over the South, all over Georgia, to make sure that these numbers do change. So it's been a slow and steady slog, but we have done the work.
Anthony, we can double check, make sure her mic is on. Are we straight with her audio? So I just want to make sure that we're hearing you clearly. When you talk about all those different groups, we've been communicating with folks. And the third-party groups have been vital. what historically happens, in these elections is people have said, okay, the candidate, party. So then what happens? The election time rolls around. Then there's always a fight. There's always a fight over money, over resources. You have your ad buyers. They want to sit here and put all the money on air. They want to put it on television and radio. Then you have the field people who say, no, you got to put the money in the field. You got to pay people canvassing. You got to have people going door to door. You got to have them touching people. From your perspective, describe what that has been like. Has it been the personal interaction, people seeing folk again and again and again, and they say, you know what, I'm tired of y'all coming by, damn it, just give me the form so I can go ahead and get registered. Has that been the formula for success in this state? The hard slog on the ground?
So it's the hard slog on the ground, but I have to say, Roland, it's those black women. I mean, black women leaders in all across the state have done the work for a long, long time. And so what they're seeing is they're listening to trusted organizations that are on the ground, that they know, that they care about, that know that they care about them, the same organizations that asked them if they were all right over COVID-19 or ask about affordable housing issues. So they trust these organizations. So what we hear is they're not so much interested in the balance of power on the national level or understand the significance of that more than they understand those kitchen table issues. What's happening around affordable health care? What's happening around COVID-19 testing? What's happening around access to jobs and opportunities for their families? So what they're saying is, if this election is going to be about me, then we need to center those issues about them. So we're getting better responses by talking directly to black women. So whether it's our phones or whether it's door to door, we have canvas crews all over the state, and they're getting great responses at the door because people are sick of the mail and they're sick of the negative ads. They want that one-on-one conversation. They want those events that they can come and feel like they're in the midst of a real campaign. Yesterday, the last 2 days, we've been out at polling sites and doing parties at the polls. And I tell you, those seniors are out there just laughing and dancing and saying this is the best voter experience that they ever had, because we want to make sure it's a family atmosphere, a party atmosphere, that every time that the poll is open, that they should get out and vote and celebrate voting. And, you know we deal with a lot of voter suppression here, but what we try to tell people is vote early so that if there's a problem, we can help you to make sure that vote counts. That
was one of the things that Raphael Warnock said yesterday. He said, we want to bank as many votes as we can before January 5th. He said that's really important. You talked about the work that black women are doing. What has been the difficulty with black men?
Well, y'all ain't easy. You're never easy, right?
Hold on, y'all ain't easy either. So let's be real clear.
But it's worth it. We're worth it.
There we go. So y'all worth it. Y'all difficult, but worth it.
We love the black man.
We difficult,
we wouldn't be here without a black man. But you know who gets it done, right? You know them black women be getting it done.
But there are brothers around the country who get it done as well. What I'm trying to understand is what specifically are you hearing? What is the difficulty? Because you have to connect with them as well.
So some of the difficulty has been, we have been in this summer of uprising, particularly here in Atlanta, and so black men are upset, right? They're upset because of what's happening in terms of this police situation and over-policing of their communities. The recreation centers have been closed. There are a lack of jobs. There's nothing for them to do. So then we're asking them to vote without giving them something. And so, fair exchange is no robbery. In the case of black women, women are saying, this is what we've done, this is our agenda, we have the receipts, and we want our agenda to reflect our receipts. I think with black men, they want that instant, look, you're killing us, and now you want us to vote. And so that conversation, other people have made that conversation harder for us to have because of what's happening in this community, in these communities.
But is it also, this is something that we've talked about on this show numerous times. Is it also that you do not have strong black male coalitions that are out there doing the work as opposed to relying on black women doing the work. Now, and again, I'm not saying they don't exist. And see, right now, you don't see y'all. Even though she got a mask on, she starts smiling because she doesn't want to get in trouble with any of her people. But the point I'm using an example. Look, for the last several months, a group of black women, more than 1,000. They've been on a phone call every Sunday night.
I'm on them Sunday calls.
There you go.
You know.
So there you go. and I have said, and I've had black women say, why aren't brothers doing this? The reality is, you can't complain about what isn't being done if you do not self-organize. So is that part of the deal that you have not seen wide-scale self-organization among black men to reach black women, to reach black men?
Well, maybe they're doing it, and because I'm a black woman, and I'm not in the room, so I don't know.
It ain't happened. So first of all, hold on, you can't. That's nice try, Deborah. But first of all, Georgia Stand Up ain't no black women's group. Okay, y'all got brothers involved as well.
We sure do.
So if these brothers were doing this thing, you would have heard about it.
Well, we know that there's Black Men Initiative that are doing a fabulous job. We're partners with them. A lot of the Divine Nine organizations we're partners with them. 100 Black Men, Tommy Dortch, they're doing stuff on the ground. I think it may not be as organized in terms of a coalition like the black women have been doing, but they're certainly doing their work.
No, and that's precisely my point. That's precisely my point, because that's what I've said on our show, is that you have groups out there. I keep arguing that unless you have the coalition, unless you have people who are coming together saying, all right, what are y'all doing? Got it. Y'all got this area of the state covered. We don't need to do that, so we're going to go here. What are y'all doing? Who's doing ads? Who's doing social media? Who's doing churches? Who's doing this? At the end of the day, you got to know who's doing what. Otherwise, it's a bunch of folk just out there, and then you're unable to actually track your progress to say, what inroads are we actually making?
Exactly. But what you're looking at, we're right in one of our war rooms, right? We map everything we're going, every place we're going, every place we've been. All these maps along the wall says every territory that our canvassers have gone to.
All right, so take us like, for instance, right here. So you've got City of Atlanta, neighborhood planning unit boundaries.
Right.
Okay, so you got this map here, and then you have this map here. So so explain to the folks. So we got the wide shot, we have the camera shot here. Okay. Explain to folks exactly what y'all are doing.
So if you look at this where S is, that is a cluster of 12 neighborhoods. So our canvassers are actually going out to those 12 neighborhoods. We hit block by block, door by block. We have a minivan system where we can pull up all the black registered voters, but we black around here, so we care about where we are. So we can pull up every single day where black voters are in real time. When we send out our canvassers, they're able to see exactly which doors they should hit and which literature. Now, one door might represent 5 people in that household.
Now, when you say pull it up, what people don't realize is you have the data
and the technology.
Who voted, who didn't. That
exactly.
is, I mean, because look, elections are based upon precinct. You can sit here and go, there are 987 people registered in this precinct. Last election, 230 voted.
Exactly.
Who are the other 700 plus? This is who they are. We can target them.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing. We're doing granular targeting to the door. And we're talking to people. So we're overlaying our walks with our talks. So we have 75 people on the phones calling that same area that we're walking, and then we flip it up to the next area. And so we're overlaying with the walks, with the talks, with the events, with the robocalls, and then the overlaying of a general message of black women, black men. This power is yours, and you have to use it.
Do you also have this broken down based upon demographic? That is, you have your young folks targeting your younger voters as well, so they have peers talking to them?
Absolutely. So we have Black Youth Vote, and our coordinator is Ariel Singleton, and they're working with black youth all across the state. But what they're trying to do is to focus on that 18 to 24-year-olds, and then you even go up even more to 30 now. We have them organizing campaigns.
Because that key group that, frankly, does not vote at big numbers, 18 to 29.
But that key group in this last presidential election voted overwhelmingly for progressive. So that's a bank that you can count on if you speak to them about their issues. So one of the things that we're doing is a virtual concert. Actually, we're airing it on your show on Friday. They came up with their own campaign. We have an LGBTQ campaign. We have a campaign for 17-and-a-half-year-olds that just became eligible to vote for this election. So in every segment, we have that population working on a campaign that will reach them. So black women, black men, youth, LGBTQ, and then the general community.
What is your target area? Is it just Metro Atlanta? Is it other parts of the state? Or are there other organizations who are doing exactly what we're talking about here in rural parts of Georgia?
So we have the People's Agenda, Georgia Coalition of the People's Agenda, that have 7 offices throughout the state, and they're working a lot on voter protection. What we're doing is we're focusing on the Atlanta metro area where 60% of the population is, and we have key canvassers.
60% of the state's population.
Of the state's population.
Got it.
Right. And so we want to make sure that we hit these urban corridors. We're also hitting Albany, Augusta, Columbus, Macon, and Savannah, which are other core metropolitan areas across the state. And we're hitting them with canvassers and phones. And so we have to go where our strength is. We know our strength, the base of it for us is black women. Then we go to black households. That's our target. And then, of course, the young folks.
So I had some idiot on my YouTube channel. Roland said these voter registration efforts were neutral. Your guest just said they are hyper-targeted towards black progressives. First of all, Steve, let me explain something to you, Steve. A 501c3 cannot endorse a candidate.
Absolutely.
They can endorse issues.
Yes.
Let me say it again, Steve. A 501c3, you can be a nonpartisan group, but you can have issues that you believe in. You simply don't endorse a candidate. So, Steve, if Republicans want to reach these voters, they had better focus on their issues.
Yes.
As opposed to just throwing out God, gays, and guns, as Howard Dean said in 2004. Sometimes you got to check folks who don't quite understand.
So you're quite right about the issues. We're voting those kitchen table issues, and those kitchen table issues affect us every single day, and that's what people are concerned about. So my suggestion to any candidate, for whatever party, is if you can't deal with Ms. Johnson and Ms. Jackson's kitchen table issues about jobs, affordable housing, health care, and the care of her family, transit, all of those issues, then you're not going to reach them. I'm
cracking up laughing because I got another idiot, Tommy Murray. These people are so damn racist. So if some white people got together to talk about things like this, that would be acceptable. No, it'd be called racist. He says, you call us Nazis, we don't forget. First of all, this is what white folks do. This is what white conservative evangelicals do. White conservative evangelicals are doing the exact same thing, and they're talking to white people about their issues.
Yeah. Everybody talks to their base. Right, and so, of course, we're not for a particular candidate, but we are for policies and issues and power for black people. All people matter, of course, as we say, but we're, at Georgia Stand Up, our focus has been on the base of our organization, which are black voters.
So when we look at, we've had 3 days of early voting. A lot of people, they saw the big number that took place on Monday. Fair Fight said 41% of those folks who voted on Monday were African American. That's a huge number.
That is a huge number.
How's it tracking so far in terms of, I saw the combination between in-person voting as well as absentee is over 700,000.
Yes, and I haven't seen today's numbers. However, we have people that have requested an absentee ballot that have not turned it in. And so if it's sitting on your kitchen table, we need you to mail that in or take it directly to a precinct and make sure it's inside and you get that vote counted. We don't want people to assume that they filled it out and they left it on kitchen table and they forgot about it and assumed that their vote was cast. It's not cast until you actually turn it back in. Just requesting the ballot does not mean you cast your vote. We need everybody who has an absentee ballot to turn it back in or to vote in person during one of these 12, 14 days of early voting.
We were in Albany over the weekend. We were in Macon. We were in Columbus. And one of the things that they said is that, I think it was in Albany. I think I already talked to them.
Albany.
Well, interesting because some folks said Albany, others said Albany.
Well, if they're from Albany, it's Albany.
See, that's what I'm saying. So I'm like, no, make up your damn mind. line. Okay, either it's called this or it's not called this. And I was sitting there and I'm like, y'all, which one is it? Y'all keep saying Albany, because if you said Albany, no, that's Albany, New York. We're Albany, Georgia. I'm like, look, I said, it's spelled Albany.
Where are you from?
I'm from Houston.
So, you know, they say Houston or Houston, right?
No, who the hell say Houston?
They do here
Don't
in
know.
Atlanta.
Well,
It was
anybody-
Houston Street.
Right, that's
Instead of
Houston
Houston.
Street. No, I'm from Houston, Texas. So we know what we call ourselves.
Okay,
So
Pecan
we don't
Pie.
say a separate name if you from there, and if you not from there, you call it something else.
Well, what do you say about Atlanta?
Hell's Atlanta.
You say what?
It's Atlanta. Or ATL.
Atlanta, right? Other people say Atlanta.
Okay, whatever. That's ain't. Please,
So
I don't
welcome
even.
to Atlanta.
They draw that whole
Albany.
thing out. Draw that whole thing out. But the thing there was, they told me that they had a 58% turnout in November 3rd election, and I said, well, what are they hoping to get it? So I mean, 58%. You got a significant black population there. I was told I'm gonna be in Athens on Saturday with the Warnock campaign. They said black numbers there were not as strong as they expected, and so what needs to happen in these non-metro Atlanta cities is that a different type of messaging to that rural voter, which is different between this voter here in metro Atlanta?
Well, what I would say is we need every person that calls themselves a leader in any capacity to start getting on the phones and getting your people out. We need you at this point. We need all the churches, all the Divine Nine, all the community-based organizations, whether you're in Albany, Columbus, Macon, Savannah, or Atlanta. We need you to tell your folks to get out. They need to hear from their elected officials, and they need to hear from their community leaders. So any organization that you're a part of, if your leader is not talking about getting out to vote, then they're having the wrong conversation right now. We know that the holidays are coming up and things are going to start shutting down, but we want people to do, while they're out grocery shopping or Christmas shopping, go ahead and early vote. Cast that ballot now so that they can be in the bank. Of course, we're not asking people to vote for a particular candidate, but we're asking people to vote early and then bring 5 members of your family out, and then make yourself available for the last day, which is January 5th, and bring other people to the polls. Make yourself available by volunteering. We need all hands on deck, y'all.
Early voting ends when?
Early voting in some counties end on December 30th. In other counties, it's December 31st. If you go to our website or go to the Secretary of State's website, you can find that information, and we can connect you to that. We also would like people to volunteer. If you're willing to volunteer wherever you are, or if you're in Georgia, we can find a way to help you help us. We need the support here in Georgia. We need the love here in Georgia. But more than anything, we need to make sure that people don't forget that Atlanta and Georgia is in this limelight right now. But when January 6th happened, Atlanta and Georgia and the rest of us are going to be asking, where is the agenda? So we need to start organizing, mobilizing, and strategizing now, because we want to make sure that everybody that gets elected on this watch, on our watch, has an agenda that's connected back to black and brown people.
What's the website?
GeorgiaStandUp.org.
All right then, Deborah Scott, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Roland. Keep it up.
All right, we'll do. Got to go to commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Ahmaud Arbery case, as well as 2 other cases, one out of Texas and then one in... You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.